So let's do a little call and response. Can we do that?
Yes, sure.
Today's a new day.
Today's a new day.
Today I make a new start.
Today I make a new start.
Today I am wonderful.
Today I am wonderful.
Today I am beautiful.
Today I am beautiful.
I love everybody and everybody loves me.
I love everybody and everybody loves me.
I'm so awesome I just want to kiss myself. I claim the right to live my vision.
I claim the right to live my vision.
I am divinely guided in all that I do.
I am divinely guided in all that I do.
I will do something that matters today
I will do something that matters today
and tomorrow.
and tomorrow.
I forgive everyone who ever hurt me.
I forgive everyone who ever hurt me.
I love myself and I love myself and others
And others
enough to say no.
enough to say no.
I am open and receptive to all of life's riches.
I'm open and receptive to all of life's riches.
See, I'm trying to get you to wake up. Remember, zeal, enthusiasm. So today I want to talk to you about, it says focus on the prize, and it's really about finding your purpose, focusing on that which is your purpose, that's your prize. Dr. Robert Butler, the first director of the National Institute of Aging, estimated that the ability to define your life meaning adds to the length of your life. They did a study and they found that people that got up in the morning and had a purpose lived longer. And then a more recent study by the Journal of the American Medical Association found that they studied 7,000 people from the age 50 on, and when they started, they had these 7,000 people fill out a paper that talked about their life's purpose and the meaning of life. And those, they found that they ranked them. So if somebody said, my purpose is just to be here, or I watch TV, that got a pretty low score. And somebody that said, my purpose is to transform my life and to encourage others to change the world, they gave them a higher score. When they went back, what they found out at the participants who had the lowest scores were twice as likely to have died. So if you have a purpose, there's evidence that there'll be some better health, that you'll have a better life. And it's not only true for us as human beings, but it's true for groups and organizations and churches. And when a church has a true sense of its purpose, it's more alive. And that's why I've got this purpose that we're here to transform lives. Mainstream Christianity believes that their purpose is to save souls. They're clear about their purpose. Sometimes we're not quite so clear on ours. But our purpose is so that we know God, and that we know that we're loved, and that we know that each and every person that we meet has the Christ within them, that they have an essence of God within them. And when we see them on television and we don't like what they say, we have to realize they have a piece of God in them. And my job is to find it. My job is to look for that which is good. But I'm not here to talk about Unity of Merritt Island having a purpose. I'm talking about you and I having a purpose. And it's not one that our parents gave us. It's not that one that somebody says we ought to have. You and I have to be clear about what our own personal purpose is. And it's important because when you have a purpose, you have more energy. Your energy can be inexhaustible. And it's important for us to remember to have a purpose even after we're retired. Even after we're 70 or 80, we can find a purpose. That purpose might be to tell someone that you love them every day. It might be to call someone who needs help. The reason I'm talking about finding the prize, focusing on the prize and finding your purpose, is because our talks this month are on our favorite Bible story. And one of my favorite Bible stories since I was a little kid was David and Goliath. Now you all know the story of David and Goliath. Over 3,000 years ago, there was this teenager, David, who took a lunch to his brother who were on the battlefield. And he discovered that the Israelites were frozen in fear. The Israelites were battling the Philistines, and the Philistines had more soldiers. And in fact, as a people, they were very large, much larger than the average Israelite. And the Philistines made an offer. They'd let one Israelite fight one Philistine. Of course, the Philistine that they were going to let them fight was Goliath. And he was the fiercest warrior you could imagine. It says that he was 9 feet 9 inches tall. Now, there's lots in the story about David and Goliath that we've metaphysically talked about over time. That's really not what I want to talk to you about today. I want to talk to you about the backstory that you might have missed. In 1 Samuel 17, it says that Saul, who was the king, made a great offer to the person who would fight Goliath. And here's what David learned. He learned that if he fought Goliath and he won, if he was still alive, that he'd get to marry the princess. Now, think about it. Here's a little shepherd boy. And he'd get to marry the princess. That'd make him pretty hot stuff. He would get great riches, that his whole family would be free. Can you imagine how impressionable that young man was when he was thinking, I can marry the princess. No way I could do it any other way. She'd never look at me. They'd never even talk to me. And so he said, I'll do it. And I'm going to tell you that when he said, I'll do it, he wasn't thinking about Goliath. What was he thinking about? The princess. And that's what you and I have to do. We have to learn to think about the princess, whatever that princess is in our life, what our purpose is, so that when we get this obstacle, that our purpose is so strong that that obstacle is nothing. It's just something to be, my dear sweet husband, he would just say, that's another rat to be killed. We know that David found his purpose. He got so excited, he got so energized, he had zeal, he had enthusiasm. And we all know how he killed Goliath. He killed him with a stone. He was able to kill Goliath with the things that he already had. He already had everything he needed. And that story is to tell us that you and I have everything we need to fulfill our purpose. We don't need to go out and get another degree. We don't need to have another car. We don't have to read another book. We have everything we already need. So when Goliath was taunting David, he said, you may be big, but my God is bigger. And God has given me this purpose. He's filled my mind with this purpose. And so I don't know what Goliath might be standing in your way on any given day, but I'm inviting you to get real clear that no matter how big your Goliath is, your God is bigger. Also in the Bible is a story about Joshua and Caleb, and they had been wandering in the desert for 40 years, and they came to the promised land, and Moses sent 12 scouts into the promised land, and 10 of them came back and said, oh, I don't think it's safe for us to go in there. But 2 of the scouts, Joshua and Caleb, saw it different. They said, yes, it is the land of milk and honey. And it's what God promised us. Now they had to, because they listened to those 10 scouts, they had to wander a little longer. And interestingly, those 10 scouts did not get to the promised land, but Joshua and Caleb did. Their internal system said, you might be big, but my God is bigger. When we realize our purpose, there may be times that we come across these obstacles. And Goliath represents our fear of failure. How many times have you had a passion or a thought of something that needs to be done and you think, oh, I would do it, but oh my gosh, what if this happens? I won't be able to do it. What if that happens? I won't be able to do it. And we never start. Have you ever been in that place? Yeah, I have too. Author John Maxwell says, impossible is just a big word thrown around by small men who find it easier to live the world they've been given than to explore the power they have to change their world. Impossible is not a fact. It's an opinion. Impossible is not a declaration. It's a dare. Impossible is potential. Impossible is temporary. Impossible is nothing. I'll tell you a story about a man who had a strong purpose. His name was Francisco, Bucio, and I don't know how to say it. At 27, he was a resident in plastic surgery, and he was in Mexico City. And on September 19th, 1985, there was an earthquake, 8.1 on the Richter scale, and it claimed 4,200 lives. Francisco lived on the 5th floor of a building, and it collapsed. And suddenly he was buried under rubble, and he was buried with a beam over his right hand, the hand he used to do surgery with. But he held on to the belief. And his father and his brothers worked, and after 4 days, they found him. And immediately the rescuers were just going to saw off his hand. But his family said, no, don't do that. He needs that hand. And so they worked and got cranes, and they finally moved the beam, and they got him to the hospital. And they did 19 hours of surgery on it. And he underwent surgery, and as he lay there in the hospital, his hopes began to dim because his hand was not responding. His fingers failed to regenerate. And finally, they amputated 4 of his fingers. But that didn't stop him from his desire to be a plastic surgeon. He started looking for a miracle, and he found one. His quest led him to San Francisco and a Dr. Harry Bunke, who was chief of microsurgery at Davies Medical Center. And he had pioneered transplanting toes for fingers. And so Francisco went through a surgery, and he got 2 toes for his ring finger and his pinky. And the doctor told him that a hand will rehabilitate itself to the need that you have. So Francisco went home and he spent days and days and hours tying and untying knots, practicing writing, dicing food into tiny pieces, rolling rubber balls between his fingers. And in the beginning, even the simplest thing was just almost impossible to do. At the same time that he worked on his right hand, he worked to become ambidextrous and able to use his left hand. The day came when he was back in surgery assisting a senior resident. The patient had a broken nose, and the resident told Francisco to remove cartilage from the man's rib to rebuild the nose. It took him almost an hour to do something that would have taken another surgeon 10 minutes. But it was an hour of triumph. And today he is still a highly regarded plastic surgeon. He volunteers his time correcting cleft palates on children and doing reconstructive surgery for children who have had burns. Having had 6 surgeries himself, he really can empathize with those children about what it's like to feel afraid, what it's like to be in pain. People affectionately call him the surgeon who operates with his feet. And he just laughs about it because he says, yes, it's a miracle because I can do what I want to do. And I'll tell you another story about a man who overcame a great obstacle. His name was Stephen Cannell. And he was in the 3rd grade, the 4th grade, and the 10th grade. He just didn't do very good at all. He had dyslexia, and he was humiliated lots and lots by his teachers. I know you know that Albert Einstein, Thomas Edison, and Hans Christian Andersen all suffered from dyslexia also. Stephen spent his time daydreaming, and he could just tell the most fabulous stories. But his reading was very slow, and his recall was weak. He went to college on a football scholarship, but he soon failed because he lost that because he couldn't keep his grades up. But he went back home and he worked in his family's interior design business. He wasn't really happy. He started writing down his stories. He said, I'm not the brightest guy around, but who cares? I won't think about that today. And his career took off because he sold a script for a series called Adam 12. Since then, he's been, an Emmy-winning writer and producer, chairman of Cannell Studios. He has co-created or created more than 40 shows, scripted 450 episodes, produced 1,500 episodes. And for those of you who are old enough to remember, his hits include The Rockford Files, The Great American Hero, The A-Team, Hunter, Riptide, Hardcastle and McCormick, 21 Jump Street, Wise Guy, The Commish, Prophet, Renegade, and Silk Stockings. He overcame his Goliath. He knew that he was supposed to tell stories. And he went on to tell stories to great success. There was a woman, Sherry Poe, I read about her in a book called Unstoppable. She didn't finish high school because she was raped and traumatized, and it just totally derailed her life. And in 1997, she wanted some comfy shoes. And at that time, women's athletic shoes were just small men's shoes, even though women's feet are shaped differently from men's feet. And she had the idea about a woman making shoes for women. and she started the brand RYKAS, Rykas, and she sent them to aerobics instructors. She sent them to Oprah, and she ended up on Oprah's show. Princess Di was sent a pair and a note via her trainer, and Princess Di wore them. She sold out of all of her shoes, and today that brand is a national brand. I don't know if you remember, again, some of you will remember because we're of the age to remember, but in 1986 there was Hands Across America, and it was a dream that Kim Cragen had, and Ken had, because he wanted to show that we can be united, and he wanted to do that to raise money. And 2 months before the event, he had less than 2% of the people that he needed. But he managed to get into front of someone at Coca-Cola. They gave him $5 million. And he was able to get the people. And he got enough people to span 4,000 miles across 17 states. It's the largest single volunteer event. 5.5 million people turned out to join hands. So my message to you today is to figure out what your purpose is. Figure out what the prize is. Find your princess. That's what David did. He focused on the princess and he killed Goliath. The everlasting truth is the universe will support us no matter what our purpose is. You and I just have to get clear about it. And if anybody has a dream that they'd like to share, we'll stand here and support you in that dream. Nobody has a purpose they're willing to state. My purpose.
My purpose is to smile at everybody I meet.
And so it is. We see that happening, and we see you doing that. And we see the outcome of that everybody who meets you will then smile at somebody else. Anybody else? Have a great week.